This experience happened to me back in 2015, and I still get chills when I think about it. It was summer, when I was travelling for work purposes. My job required me to travel a lot, and with that travel, I would regularly stay in hotels, Airbnbs, motels, you name it. Well, on this work trip, I was conducting business in Canada. I had landed and picked up my rental car when I began my journey to my motel. Not only was my flight long, but I had a journey to get to my motel as well. It was pretty much out the way in the sticks. I usually got put up in decent accommodation by the company, and as I arrived at the particular one I was booked into, albeit far with not much around, I could see this was no different. It still looked like a good, standard, basic place to stay. And with me being exhausted from the travel and only being there for the night, I couldn't wait to just get myself some food and then crash out and get some much needed sleep before I'd have to be up and on my way and thinking of work. I parked up and checked in as the staff at the front desk greeted me and gave me my room key, informing me that to get to my room I'd have to head outside and follow the building round to the right as my room was situated out back. Shouldering my luggage, I headed back outside into my room. Having finally ate, it was now approaching midnight and I was more than ready to lay back and relax in my room, knowing I'd have an early start. So I settled into my room and looked to get some much needed shut-eye. Although tired, I was restless and kept falling in and out of sleep. It was approaching 1:30 p.m. when I finally felt I could drift off, but instead, I was awoken to the faint sound of someone rattling a door. Sitting up, I thought at first it was my room door, but I soon realized it wasn't. It was the adjoining door inside my room that led to the room next door to mine. At first, I thought maybe someone was just testing the door, but it soon became apparent to me that whoever it was trying to get into my room. Sitting up on my bed, I shouted out, "There's someone in here!" The rattling suddenly stopped, and again all fell silent. I guessed I'd got whoever it was attention, and they realized the room was occupied. So, lying back down, I tried to get myself back to sleep. As I lay there, all but 5 minutes passed when again, the door began to rattle. I sat up, staring at the door as I turned the bedside lamp on. I could see now the door moving, as if someone was trying to force their way in. I stood up, walking closer to the door as I repeated, "Look, there's someone in here." But this time, my words fell on deaf ears, as whoever was trying to open the door became more aggressive with their attempts. Now, beginning to feel concerned as I was stood in just my pants, it wasn't ideal. They continued to attempt to get in, my adrenaline starting to kick in now as I shouted that I was ringing the front desk to report them. As I picked up the phone, ringing the hotel reception, the door again stopped rattling. The person had heard me and once again stopped. The receptionist by this point had already picked up, and not wanting it to happen again, I said to the woman on the desk that I was in room 206, and the guest in the room next to me was trying to get into my room, continuing their attempts, even after signalling I was in there, and that I'd appreciate if someone would speak to them. The woman on the phone asked me what room I was in again, as she sounded confused. I repeated 206, and then my heart sank, as she said, "Sir, there's no one checked into the room next to you. It's vacant." Hearing this sent a shiver down my spine, and my heart began to race. If there was supposed to be no one booked into the room next to me, then who the fuck was trying to get into my room? I assured the woman that there was definitely someone in there and they were trying to enter my room. She said that she would send someone round right away to check on it, if I could bear with them, and call the desk if anything else happened. Feeling freaked out now as to who the hell it was, I pressed my ear up against the door, and I could hear movement on the other side of the door. I put my clothes back on and sat, waiting for confirmation. A few minutes passed until I heard a knock on the door to the room next to me. I could hear someone calling out. Then, all fell silent as I approached closer to the adjoining wall. I could then only hear the eerie silence and my thoughts getting ahead of themselves. As I sat listening, 3 loud knocks echoed from my front room door that startled the crap out of me. They were followed by the sound of a hotel staff member's voice who had been sent to check out the room next to me. As I opened the door to the staff, they reported to me that they had thoroughly checked the room next to me, and there was indeed no one in there. But the restroom window was found wide open, and had been the possible entry point for someone to enter, looking like someone had been in that room and left the way they came in. most likely when they knew you'd called the desk. I was grateful they'd came and checked that out, but felt uneasy about the whole situation. Why was some stranger trying to break into my room? I requested a room change, as I didn't feel comfortable staying in that room after that. The hotel obliged, and I was moved into a new room. Not that it helped, as I couldn't sleep great after that. The next day is what shook me. As I was leaving my room to check out, I could see the police at the front desk questioning people. When I found out what had happened, I felt physically sick inside. On the same row of rooms I was originally on, a few doors down, a room was broken into, and the guest staying in that room was robbed of all their valuables. Not only that, but when they had woken and discovered what was happening, they were stabbed and badly beaten. It was only when they managed to crawl out of their room and another guest saw them that staff and the police were notified as to what happened. The man was taken to a local hospital to be treated. Hearing this sent a shiver down my spine, my heart racing. The person trying to get into my room was most likely the same person who did this. The scary thing to think, it could have been me. I'm so lucky that I was a light sleeper and alert to what I'd heard. The person was never caught. The identity of who assaulted that guest and tried to break into my room is still unknown. After the staff had checked the room next to me, I believe they must have thought I was making it up and hearing things. I bet they didn't even bother keeping an eye out. And sadly, someone paid the price. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if they'd gotten into my room. I might not have been so lucky. I worked as a cleaner at a motel where I lived in New Mexico. It was nothing special. In all honesty, it was pretty poor and basic, but it was cheap and a place for people to get their heads down for a quick one-night stopover or something like that. But along with the cheap prices and its seedy reputation, that brought some crazy people along. Doing that job, you see a lot of things, and being a cleaner, you can imagine the states you have to clean up. From drug use, leftover syringes, trashed rooms, and what you can imagine being left over from hookers. I'm 40 now, and this happened to me 6 years ago, but I still struggle to get the images out of my head of what I saw. Most of my shifts consisted of night shifts. It was easier for me that way, as in the day I could look after my kids until the oldest one was back to look after my younger daughters. It wasn't something I'd planned to do forever, but as a single mother, it got me by at the time. I had just started my shift after a few days off, and I was heading into a long weekend stretch. You had cleaners in the day and cleaners on the night for sorting the empty rooms, and when guests leave or arrive late. I was doing my rounds on the lower ground floor, outdoor rooms, facing the car park. I'd cleaned up a few rooms by now, when I passed one of the rooms down on my schedule to clean. It had a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door though. I found it strange, but it wasn't uncommon for the schedules to have a few mistakes on them. So I remembered the number and continued with my rounds, and left it, thinking nothing more of it. I went on to finish the night pretty smoothly, with most rooms not being so bad to clean, and the motel being pretty quiet. I left the next morning, swapping with my colleague, but not mentioning to her I hadn't cleaned that certain room. The next night, when I arrived back in, like clockwork, I swapped with my colleague and took over for the night. It was nearing 11 p.m. I was cleaning a different section of the hotel this time. When skimming through the cleaning sheets, I saw the same room from the night before had still not been cleaned, as it was marked down on the sheets. After I'd finished up with the section I was in, I decided I would take a walk out there and check on it. And as I did, I again saw the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door. This time, I decided to give the door a knock, but there was no reply. I knocked one more time just in case whoever was in there didn't hear, but again, no reply. We get told by management not to irritate the guests or disturb them if the signs are clearly displayed on the doors. So at that point, I didn't want to risk getting in trouble with management as I needed my job. So I left, and thought on my way out I'd ask the guy to check in if the room was still occupied. If not, then my colleague could clean it in the morning. It was then, whilst I was on my break around 1:30 a.m, I got called from the guy on the desk, with a complaint about a room not being clean and smelling bad, as someone had checked in late passing through. What was strange was, it was a room right next to the one I had checked with the "Do Not Disturb" sign. I headed down to the rooms to attend to the issue and see what was wrong with the room. As I met the guy who had complained, he told me that the room smelled rancid. Whilst he was moving to another room, I entered to clean it. As I did, I could clearly smell what he was on about. It was disgusting. I looked everywhere to locate the source of the smell, as the room itself was tidy. It's then I realized where the smell was coming from. All rooms of the hotel had adjoining doors inside, joining room to room, and the smell was clearly coming from the other side of the adjoining door. It was then I realized something wasn't right, and a little bit of panic started to kick in, not wanting to know what was on the other side. I got the assistance of my colleague from the front desk before going into the room. He couldn't leave the desk unattended, so he said he would get someone down to meet me. I didn't know who or what the hell was behind that door, and didn't want to go in alone. As I got the master key and opened the door, it was then, as it creaked open, the rancid smell broke through the darkness of the room as it went straight up our noses and hit the back of our throats, like we could actually taste the disgusting thing. It was the worst thing I'd ever smelt. Think of the worst thing you've ever smelt and times it by 100. It's the only way to describe it. I feared turning on the light, terrified to reveal what it was. But as I did and entered, the room was empty. No one, or nothing, was there. We entered further, the heat and the smell making us want to throw up. My eyes began to water as I held my forearm across my nose. The smell was coming from the bathroom area. Adrenaline pumping through me as my colleague took the lead, and we stood outside the bathroom door. As we slowly pushed the door, it creaked open as we searched for the light switch, bringing light to the room. I could see straight away in the bathtub, behind the draped shower curtain, sat a figure, static, not moving a muscle. Fixated on it, my colleague called out to no reply. His hand hovered at the curtain, as if reluctantly not wanting to pull back the curtain. But then, as he did, the fear I had turned into reality as I let out a scream. Behind the shower curtain lay a dead, rotting body, a headless body. The head had been removed. As I backed up, feeling I was about to throw up, what I saw next shocked me to the core. Behind us, as I turned, I saw in the sink parts of the head, the eyes, the teeth, the severed tongue and nose, all scattered in the blood-soaked sink. Someone had removed everything from the head, yet the head itself was missing. I ran out of that room shivering, my skin crawling from what I had just seen. We called the police and they came immediately and cordoned off the scene. It was discovered between the crossings on shift with the other staff. That room had not been opened or cleaned for 5 days. The head was never found, and the suspect was never apprehended. Whatever sick monster did that is still out there, and that, along with the images imprinted in my head, still give me nightmares to this day. Hey everyone, The Collector here. We hope you've been enjoying the chilling content so far. Check out our latest original, The Cursed, by CJ Quinn over to the right. And if you haven't already hit that subscribe button and become a part of the Horror Motives community, you won't regret it. Comment to let us know you're here and what topics you'd like to see soon, and remember, fear lies within.